Stefan the BMW DIY guy. What I've really wanted to get around to is doing a 3-month review of the AvinUSA Android 9.0 touchscreen display that I have in my car. Now I have the installation video, which if you want to know how to do that, I've got that posted up, which will show you how to get this into your car if you're coming from a previous version of the Avin screens or a different product or the OEM screen. But what I really wanted to do was provide a walkthrough of what it actually looks like to navigate through it, answer some of the basic questions that I get, and some of them I get all the time, so I'm really happy to speak to some of those things and show you what it's going to look like in your car. So let's get out to the car, show you what this is going to look like running, and see why you want to add this to your vehicle. Alright y'all, so here we are. I wanted my long overdue 3-month review of the Android 9.0 display from AvinUSA. I wanted to make sure that I had some time to settle in with the device and also make sure I had everything working the way how I wanted it to work before I did a review. So first of all, let's start on the iDrive side. Let's talk about this a little bit. One thing before I forget, my camera is actually attached to a suction mount coming off my sunroof. So you're going to see the camera's got a down angle, so I can see on the display it's cutting off the top just a little bit. That's because of the angle the camera's sitting at. You don't see that sitting in the driver's seat. So I want to head that comment off right away where people are like, well, it seems like it's cutting off the top of the display. It's because of the angle of my camera being attached to the roof of my car right at the moment. Okay, so let's very briefly talk about the iDrive side. If you notice, iDrive works great. I get lots of questions about, well, does this replace your iDrive, supersede the iDrive, anything like that? No, it absolutely does not. Your iDrive is a pass-through. Anything that works on the iDrive side will continue to work on, once you have this display installed. Navigation, settings, radio, multimedia, all of those options will work as they normally work. Bluetooth works as well, depending on what options you have in your car. So anything that you have on the iDrive side still will be there. This is a supplemental system on top of it. So you will have changed from a 6.5 or 8.8 inch screen to this 10.25 inch screen. It'll just look better on the iDrive side. So 2 more things about the iDrive side here really quickly. Setting up your display to the correct setting is really important. If you're coming from the 6.5 inch screen, it may be possible for you to get the full width screen. So if you've got the 6.5 and you go to the iDrive side, what you're going to get is, so I've got the media display here on the side. What you're going to get is a display about this big, and you're going to get a template that goes over the top on this side being provided by the Avin side, because you cannot take a 6.5 inch image and stretch it out to 10.25 and have it look anything even vaguely good. The 8.8 can stretch, the 6.5 cannot. So it is possible with an app like Bimmer Code, and if the code of your car supports it, you can go into 2 different settings in your car and tell your car that it had originally an 8.8 inch screen, and you'll get the full display. That will depend entirely on the age and model and build of your car. Some people can do it, some people can't. So I can't tell you exactly this model can or that model, this model can or that model cannot. So everything here will be the same. The iDrive side is going to look better with this display. It's a better screen. It's bigger. My backup camera, because I have the OEM backup camera, looks better. All of those things look better on this display. So for me, as I've gone through all the generations of the Avin display, if it was just for a bigger screen, in my opinion, it would be worth it. I know people who have put the displays, the 10.25 or 10.5 inch displays out of the X5s and put them in here because they can go in, but you have to cut your dash. They're cutting their dash and cutting new holes and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's more expensive than this, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. So even if you were using it just for iDrive alone, this would be an improvement. So iDrive is going to work like it's normally going to work. I'm going to not talk about that anymore. So let's go ahead and take a look. You can touch the screen to flip to the Android side. Now, the Android side has a series of skins, so you can have whatever iDrive-esque skin on it that you like. This is the latest one that looks like the brand new BMW. So this is, I believe, iDrive 7, I believe. But this is a skin, so if you like the 4 or the 5 or the 6, you can flip back. Those previous tiles, they had tiles layout. That tile layout is just a skin. You can flip back to that if you want. So let's start here at the top. The changes are fairly dramatic as far as how the UI works. Like I said, trying to mirror what the new iDrives are doing. So you've got icons down the side, music, navigation, settings, car info. Car info will take you back to the iDrive side, by the way. And then apps, which is your Android apps. So I'm going to go through all these kind of individually. The other thing you can do as well is you can scroll. You've got 3 dots across the bottom to tell which kind of tile window you're in. The first one has navigation and Bluetooth. Second one is music and video. Third is car info, which will take you back to the iDrive and the dashboard. So you can see how that works. Now, like an Android system, you've got a pull down on the top where you can get into your controls, turning on your Wi-Fi, muting, taking a picture, settings, power. You've got all that on a pull down. You also have screen brightness as well that you can get to there. Now, if you also notice, it's probably maybe hard to see on the screen right now, but I've also got a little record icon going because I've got right here, as my hand is in the way of the camera, sorry, I've got the forward-facing DVR camera in the mirror surround, and I have that set to record continuously. It's on continuous loop, so whenever it's on, the car is always running. I've got an SD card in the side of the camera. I think it's really kind of cool, and who knows, maybe in a worst case scenario, that video might do me some good someday. All right, so some of the functions I'm going to show. So for example, music, I'm not going to play music because every time I play music, I get a YouTube takedown for copyright. But you've got all of the different functionality you can go through. You can loop in your music. You can go with your current songs. You can go where it's coming from, local, SD card, USB, or you can on what's actually playing now, which is nothing, of course, right? So you can have all these different resources of where you can have that information. So let me go back. Navigation. Now here's where you have a lot of choices in your navigation. This is where you have any choice that you want. So if you want to install Waze, for example, if you want to install the Here navigation app, Google Maps, whatever you'd like to install, you can install here and associate, and I'll show you how you associate it as your navigation app. Okay? What's really important is that when you did the installation video, that your GPS antenna has good visibility to antenna and to satellites, and so you'll get quick GPS resolution. Anytime that I ever get a video or a comment on my videos that GPS resolution isn't very good, there are GPS antenna apps to actually show how many satellites you see, and then you can pull your antenna out, you can move it around depending on where you have it installed. You can see where you get a good signal. I don't get a great GPS signal here in my garage, but it's okay. So this is just your standard Google Maps. I'm not going to walk through all of its functionality. It's what you'd have on your phone or anything else for that matter, right? So pretty straightforward. So settings, this is where you get into your device settings itself. So navigation, here is where you can associate what app you would like for that navigation button. So you can see I have Google Maps associated. It actually will list other apps as well, which is interesting to me, so which I think would give you the ability to potentially remap what that it's still going to say navigation on it, but you could map a different app there if you really wanted to. You have a language option, English, obviously. Time, I'm going to auto sync off my GPS, which you can tell I don't have a great GPS signal right at the moment. You can also set off original time and go into the Android settings itself. Your audio settings. Now, what you want to make sure is not to conflate the two between the iDrive audio settings and your Android audio settings. Anything coming from the iDrive side is still controlled by all of your audio settings in the iDrive side, right? These two do not cross. So you change something here, it's not going to change what it does on your iDrive side. Okay, so as you can see, you've got lots and lots of different settings. And your Android volumes, you've got your sound settings, bass, mid, treble, you got different presets, pop, classical, jazz, dance, so on. So you've got all your options that you can fiddle with here for your audio and video tracks that are coming through the Android side. All right, so as we get into settings, so this is where you're going to be working with some of your settings depending on what options you want. You can have how your rear camera can be mirrored. I haven't messed with that yet. I've thought about it, but I haven't done it. You can set it to block video while you're driving. In most places, it's illegal to watch videos while you're driving, so keep that in mind and what your choice is there. I won't tell you what to do. Your rear camera type, this is really important, depending on if you have an aftermarket or the OEM camera. Mine is set to the original. I don't have the 360 cameras in my car, so it's just set to original. And you can also change brightness settings as well. So you can see that there. Now, when we get into factory setup, let's touch on this briefly. I'm not going to go through every single option, but this is where, when you're setting your device up, this is really important. Your setup code 1314, okay? Now, these are the actual deeper settings inside the device itself. Most of these I do not change. Most of these I don't fiddle with in any way, shape, or form, and it works fine. So you can scroll through all your different options. And one thing that's really important that I want to call out, that I want you to check out, is your auxiliary. Now, there's lots of questions. I don't have to run the aux cable from the aux port on the wiring harness to the aux port under my armrest. I never have. Some people do, some people don't. I've never been able to narrow down why it works for some and not others. But I did talk to someone just recently where they ran the aux cable. They had to run the aux cable. When they came into this arm setting, their aux switching mode was set to manual. When they switched it to automatic, they unplugged their aux cable and it worked. So they were able to no longer use that aux cable, okay? So keep that in mind. The other important setting in here is the DVR. So this is what my forward camera is that DVR, and it's coming in through USB. So you do something else. If you're using the like RCA style plugs, I use USB and it works great. You can say whether you want the Google app or not. Some of these different settings, for example, the Bluetooth module, I don't know what the differences are between those or why you'd want to change them. The BC6 is always what it's always been for me. That's the default, and I never change it and it works fine. DVD software, all kinds, as you can see, all kinds of different options on what you would like to have as you go through this, okay? So you also have the one other setting in here, the aux activation function. Check that as well, potentially, as far as using the aux cable, okay? So there's, like I said, there's a million different varieties of things in here. I don't know what some of them do, and I'm not gonna mess with them, okay? So advanced settings, this is the thing that where you change the UI, that top level UI. So for example, in the Android 8.1, it was the BMW Evo ID6, that's the iDrive 6 style skin. The new one is 7. The Evo New is the 5, the Evo is the 4, if I remember correctly. So if you like the older styles, you can absolutely flip back. You don't lose any functionality. It just changes how it looks. Okay. There's also some setting in here for Audi and other other cars that aren't applicable to your BMW. Okay, boot logo. You can change your boot logo, and these are pre-installed logos on which one you would like of when it boots from the Android side. You'll only see this display or this boot logo when the display is booting and it's coming from the Android side first. Your iDrive will boot as normal. It'll show the iDrive start logo if that's what you're looking to do. Okay. You've got an update ability, so you can update some of these files. You probably never will. Car type. Here's the other thing that's really important. So when you look at this, you can see that there are half screen and full screen options, right, for what kind of screen you have. And these are the settings that are so important. So your display type, your CCC or CIC displays, or NBT. So the 3 different kinds of head units that are in your car are which one you pick. Whether you have the 6.5 original or 8.8 original. Don't get hung up on the model, right? I'm in an F32. This says NBT, F48, F49. That's okay. It doesn't matter. What matters is NBT 8.8, which it was originally, and 10.25. So make sure to select the right thing, and that will control whether it's full screen or half screen. If it's coming up looking distorted on the iDrive side, make sure that it's set properly here. Okay. So many more functions that we can go through here as far as updating your factory settings. Again, you're probably never going to use this. And you can also remap some of the buttons. I'll be the first one to tell you I've not done it. So as we look at the walkthrough, there's a lot of places where you can learn and change some of these things yourself. You can change your sensitivity of the screen. You can change how buttons map. You can change all those things. I don't do it, so I can't walk you through it in detail. All right, let me get out of this. So more settings, because I just went back. More settings is the Android side. So these look more like the Android side, like you would on a tablet. So network, connected devices, apps and notifications, sound, screenshots, storage, and so on. You set up your accounts, which you're going to want to do. So Google Play and the other things will work for you. If you don't have a Google Play account, you're going to want one, so you can update apps, you can update the device, about the system, about the display. All these are standard Android functionality. Okay, so we back out of that. And lastly, system info. So this is actually just showing some basic level, your build, your version, RAM, and the other information that's in your device. So that's everything on through the side navigation. So let's go back to the top. So as we look at all of your different functionality here, so as we go back through the tiles, so we've looked at navigation. Bluetooth is your standard setup. You can change your device name. You can change your PIN code if you want to have that and how that works, so you can associate your phone. And again, if you've got Bluetooth on the iDrive side, that's still going to work too. So you can have two different connectivities for your Bluetooth, depending on how you want it set up. Okay. So we go back. We've got audio, which I showed before. We've got video, which same sort of thing. You can look at it. You can be running video files that are coming off local SD card or USB. Sorry, let me go back again. Car info, which, like I said, will take you to the iDrive side. And the dashboard. So the dashboard is going to be showing basic information about your car, if your seatbelt's on, handbrake's on, how much fuel you have left, temperature, speedometer, and tachometer. Now, the speedometer is in kilometers. The fuel is in liters. There's no way to change that configuration. So for those of us in the US that aren't using metric or imperial or similar, well, this dashboard, you can't change the configuration of that. I've talked to Avin several times. There's no real way to change it, at least right at the time being. Okay, now the one thing I did want to show as we go through it all. So for the side navigation, we've done music, navigation, settings, car info, like I said, which will take us back to the iDrive side, and then apps. This is a standard Android apps list. So you can see, and a lot of these things, you can see the same things you've been running, right? So Bluetooth, dashboard, music, navigation, video. Okay, all of these things are going to launch to what you would see through the tile, right? So if you install applications, YouTube app or Waze or here, this is how you see them. Now, normally this Kronos app is installed by default normally. This is a GPS satellite app, and you can see your satellite strength. You can see how many satellites you see. It's actually not bad. That's a pretty good number for me sitting in my garage. So you can see how many satellites we see. This is a great way of testing if your GPS antenna under your dash is in a good location to be able to tell, because I can see 12 sitting here in my garage, which is unusual. Actually, that's really good right at the moment. So if you see 2, well, that's going to explain why you have bad GPS reception, right? That's not the display's fault or your antenna's fault. It's just not in a good place. So this is a good way of fiddling with that to find a good location for it. So as you can see, lots of different options. The one other thing I wanted to show, we've got YouTube installed, there's the Play Store, Maps. The one other thing that I also wanted to show is the forward-facing camera, which is really cool. It's prompting me for update, which I'm not going to do right now. So I've got the display attached to the wireless here in my house. So I have great connectivity. You can also hotspot your phone while you're out on the road, that sort of thing. So as you can see, this is the forward-facing camera that's here up mounted around my mirror. Now the other thing that I haven't worked with very much, but there's a cool function and I've been meaning to do it, so I want to point it out, I just haven't worked with it yet, is it has lane calibration. Now, I haven't set it up. It's got to detect the lanes. It's got to be, and right now it's looking at my garage wall. So it's not gonna calibrate correctly. So I'm gonna turn it off because it's going to miscalibrate, because I'm not driving down the road. It's not looking for lanes. It's not looking for paint stripes. It's looking at my garage wall, which you know, you can see a big stack of tires right there on my toolbox. So that's not going to work right. But you've got lots of options for taking pictures, manually starting and stopping video, and also you can go into your settings. You can go into your settings to configure whether you want it to loop continuously, record continuously, like I am, right? So then you just go back to home, and it will keep running in the background, which is really kind of cool. I think that's a fantastic function, which I really like, right? So it's always running. So it's great for track days as well. Gives you a great perspective being right in the middle. You don't have to worry about finding a secure mount for your camera or something similar, you know, mounting it to your headrest. Though, you know, a GoPro or similar off your bumper is a pretty cool view. But this is straight out of the center of your windshield is a great way and a great view if you're getting track days or autocross days, that sort of thing, let alone day-to-day driving, right? Heaven forbid I ever run into a situation where I'm really grateful I've got a forward-facing camera and a continuous loop of video. That probably means something went really wrong. But if I've got it, that could be invaluable. So I put a 16 gig SD card, if I remember correctly, in the side of the camera on the side, and it's just perma-looping. It's just running all the time. So let's go back to apps again really quick. So you're able to install really almost anything you want. You can install the easy connection screen mirror, so you can screen mirror your phone to the display. Absolutely, you could do that. That's a third option for something that you could be showing on your display. So you could have the display Android, you could have your iDrive, you could mirror your phone. You also can do Android Auto, or the same thing for the iPhones. It's not a function I use very much. It's never been all that useful to me, so it's not a function that I'm going to go through in great detail simply for the fact that I don't use it. So, but again, you've got many different options of how you can customize this to work. I've even seen in a few places where you can get different skins that you can launch over the top of this, and I've seen some pretty cool skins that people have put over the top of this. Out on the internet, different places, support forums, where people have skinned this whole thing differently, so it doesn't even look like this anymore. This skin will still launch because this is part of the OS, but then you launch a skin over the top of that. It really is the luxury and the ease of having an Android system that it is highly configurable, and there's no way that I can go through every single possible configuration because you can customize it so much. But you really do have some great options there. So at a high level, I think that's everything as we go through it. Yeah, so we've gone through all of our tiles. We've gone through all the navigation options down the side. You can see that we've got a Wi-Fi connection up here. You've got the Bluetooth icon up here, which is not active right now because my phone's not connected. The button here will show you, application tiles of apps that have been running, like you would see, off your phone. So you can tile back to existing apps. You can also split screen apps that way too, if I can do it correctly here. Give me a second. So it's also possible to split screen. There it is. You can also Android split screen as well. So that is the audio app split on one side with the dashboard on the other, and you can still see that I was going through. There we go. So now I've got split screens where I've got the audio player on one side and I've got my navigation on the other. So if I wanted to be playing, an audio file or MP3s or whatever it happened to be off like maybe an SD card or a thumb drive, and then also be running navigation, you can split screen in this way, and it works, which is cool. Because you don't have split screen ability off the iDrive, of course, which actually leads to another question. Can you split screen with the iDrive? I don't believe so. I had someone ask that question the other day. I don't believe so, that you can. There's not really a good way to get there, because when you look at that original drive functionality, I really don't think you can. So if we went into, because what you'd have to do to even come close. Yeah, I really don't think you can. And yeah, I'm doing this live. I'm trying to figure this out while I'm sitting here. But I don't think there's a way to be able to put the Android on one side and the iDrive on the other. That's just not going to work. Now, the other thing I wanted to show, because at a minimum, and this is what made me think of it, I'm actually using my iDrive wheel, as you can see. I'm using my iDrive wheel to select the different icons or for the apps. So for example, I go to back to that and I hit down like I would on my iDrive controller, and you can go through all. As you can see, the back worked. So I rocked to the left and the back worked. Now my controls are working up and down the navigation side. I rock right, and now the dial will go through the tiles. So you've got that level of integration. See? So that works really well. So you can use your iDrive controller pretty naturally like you would on the iDrive side and be familiar with it. So let's say, I think we've covered all the basic functions that you're going to see. And like I said, this is an Android 9 system. It has a little bit more RAM, a little bit better processor. It's Android 9 based off of the previous generations. I've been running an Avin display in my F32 since the Android 4.4, if I remember correctly. I think this is the 4th or 5th display from Avin I've had in this car. I've gone through their updates, I've changed devices, and as you can tell, I really like them and I keep putting them in. So I really think that this is an advantage. Now, the one thing that I wanted to show, and go back to the beginning, and go back to my original point, even if you don't want to use the Android side very much, like really at all, that's okay. This is a better screen than the OEM 8.8. If you're coming from the 6.5 and your car has the coding ability to tell it had an 8.8, then it's a huge upgrade. It is an exponential upgrade for you with less cost, candidly. These displays cost less than the OEM displays cost new. Let alone if you're going to retrofit in, like I said, the 10 1/4 display out of an X5, which is even more expensive, and you're going to have to cut your dash to do it. So even if you're coming from a place where you're in the Android side the majority of the time, I think this is an upgrade that's worth it. I also think that the Android just adds icing on the cake and gives you the ability to have apps. Now, the last app I want to show here really quickly, because I think it's the killer app, is not going to display properly. And that's not Avin's fault. That's not Android's fault. That's not Avin's fault. It's actually the developer's fault. So I just recently picked up an Escort radar detector that I absolutely adore, and it has the Escort Live application that ties into the radar detector. And this is the Escort Live app. It runs just fine. It installs fine. It runs fine. Everything is great. But the one problem that it's going to have is that this app does not work properly in landscape mode. This display is in landscape mode. So you can simulate, so as you can see, it comes up just fine, but what you can't do is you can't get to the upper controls that are above this green bar. So normally if you pull the screen, there's device connection information above this bar. This is not Avin's fault. This is Escort's fault, and you can simulate this exact same behavior because I also have this app installed on my phone. If I turn my phone sideways in a landscape mode, it goes in the same way and I lose the controls. So I think this is the killer app for this display. I'm talking with Escort and just going, come on guys, fix it. They're like, yeah, we hear this all the time, that our software does not work in landscape mode. For me, when they fix this, I'm actually going to take this app, I'm going to take the Escort Live app, and I'm going to associate it to my navigation button, because it'll do navigation, but it comes with all of the other Escort Live information that's coming in about, speed trap reporting, stoplight, traffic lights, all kinds of traffic, all those sort of things. I'm going to do that, and I cannot wait. So at this point, I'm waiting on Escort for them to fix their landscape display issue that they've got going on with the app. But for me, this is the killer app. I'm on the iDrive side probably 95% of the time. Once Escort fixes that, I'm probably going to be on the Android side 95% of the time. So it's a cool thing to think about. My apologies for not being able to play any music or any videos. I really am just trying to avoid a takedown by YouTube that happens to me every time, even when I play like 3 seconds of music. I got to take down. So I'm not going to do it. Sounds good. You've got all those audio controls. Your iDrive is going to work like a pass-through. Your iDrive is going to work like it did before, and then you get all of that additional Android functionality, which I'm really excited about. And actually, as I talk about it, I'm going to go bug escort right now, yet again, to get them to fix their see if they're working on fixing their landscape mode for their application. All right, all done. So as you can see, there's a lot of added functionality there, and there's a tremendous amount of customization that you can do depending on what applications you want to run, how you want to use it, whether you use it just as an improved iDrive screen, which from a financial place just makes sense to me, to add all of the Android functionality, all the apps and Waze and Google Maps and all the other applications that you can run in your car that you wouldn't normally have access to. So I've been running this display in my car now for over 2 years as I've gone through the different versions of displays, and I've been nothing but happy, and it adds a tremendous amount of technology and feature to my car. Now, especially if you're coming from a place where, maybe you had one of the base models and didn't have navigation, or had an older version of the head unit where you're missing some of the basic functionality that we kind of take for granted now. This is a great way to add that in. So not only do you get a better screen, you can upgrade, you can change your screen size if your car code allows it. You're going to have to use an app like Bimmer Code for that, by the way. But this really is a great way to bring more technology in your car and keep refreshing it and add more and added more apps, which I really like and I really enjoy. If you have any questions, I try to address them the best I can. Please click subscribe and the little bell announcement button. That way you get notifications when I have new videos coming out, and I have a ton more projects on my bench that I'm always working on, so you can bring upgrades and technology to your car and you can do it yourself. All right, thank you so much, and I'll see you on my next video.